Greetings, everyone. My name is Kaylin Boyer, and I serve as Director of Partnerships and Community Engagement on the Diversity and Inclusion team at Red Ventures. I am so honored to participate in tonight's coverage of the elections, speaking on behalf of the company as a partner of VoteAmerica. During this time of uncertainty and transition in our country, Red Ventures has recognized a need to be more actively involved in promoting social and racial justice initiatives in our company and the communities that we serve. Because of this, Red Ventures has deepened its commitment to support underrepresented and marginalized groups in our country by concentrating on voting rights and accessibility. With voting at the core of many of the systems which govern our way of living, we believe partnering with voting-focused nonprofits is one of the most effective ways to support equality and justice. Over the last several months, Red Ventures partnered with VoteAmerica to help increase voter registration and turnout for the 2020 election. With COVID-19 and major voting accessibility issues, we determined that the need for voter education was stronger than ever. Voting by mail has been a major source of voting in this year's elections, and we quickly realized that many people didn't understand how it works. How do you check if you're registered? How do you request a ballot? How do you find out where your polling location is? All of these questions are real, and they impact one's ability to activate their right to vote. With voting being one of the strongest pipelines to giving agency to marginalized and oppressed communities across all different intersectionalities, we knew from the beginning that a partnership with VoteAmerica would allow us to make a positive impact in our democracy. Our partnership has been a true collaborative and creative effort from the start. With VoteAmerica's suite of voter turnout tools, which help guide voters through the voting process, Red Ventures harnessed its strengths in technology and market reach to integrate these tools across a number of our different platforms within our Healthline Media, higher education, and FinServe core businesses, allowing us to elevate VoteAmerica's platform and reach more audiences in search of voter information. The VoteAmerica content across Red Ventures sites is already driving new voting actions. And as a result of this effort, we have driven over 10,000 total usage to VoteAmerica's voter engagement tools. In addition, our survey data shows that Red Ventures voting content will drive significant offline action, including voting, talking to family and friends, and sharing information on social media. We've also partnered with VoteAmerica to educate Red Ventures employees on voting rights and voter suppression, and to drive action to register and vote within Red Ventures and in the communities we serve. We were inspired by VoteAmerica's commitment to helping increase voter turnout by the tens of millions, with a specific focus on underrepresented and marginalized communities. With Red Ventures' support, along with others, VoteAmerica was able to fully fund their HBCU student outreach program to all 94 schools across the country. This partnership initiated what we anticipate will be a long-standing relationship with VoteAmerica. Voting is not just important in today's election, but in all elections, now and in the future. It's important that we support the ability of all individuals to make their votes count and their voices heard at the ballot box, so that all Americans are fairly represented. We're proud to partner with VoteAmerica in doing this important work and look forward to an enduring and collaborative partnership with them.
Now, I know it has been a really long election season, and there were times where it felt like the day may never come.
But today is the big day. It's finally time to vote and make sure that every single person you know votes.
And at VoteAmerica.com, you'll find all of the information that you need to cast your ballot.
It's all in one easy place, so don't wait and miss your chance to take part in our democracy.
Go to VoteAmerica.com for everything you need to know about casting your ballot today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deborah Cleaver. I'm the founder of Vote America, and it is finally election night. So let's see. I'm going to introduce you a little bit to Vote America's programs, and then I'm going to be joined by about a dozen amazing guests. And on the side, I am going to be anxiously refreshing several monitors so that I can watch the election returns come in, because again, it is election night. So I have an entire script and I'm gonna abandon it. And instead I'm gonna tell you a handful of very interesting facts about elections itself. First, voter fraud is less common than UFO sightings. I'm sure we've all heard a ton about voter fraud. It's total nonsense. Over the past 20 years, there have been 31 documented instances of voter fraud. In the same time period, there have been 94,000 reported UFO sightings, which is an awful lot of alien encounters. Second, 85% of Americans are already 85% of Americans are already registered to vote. So the reason that people aren't voting isn't that they're not registered to vote, it's that it's objectively harder to cast a ballot in the United States than in any other nation with democratically elected leadership. Third, and this is one of my favorite facts, you are statistically more likely to change your spouse than your political party. Over the past decade, approximately 5% of Americans have changed their party. Over the past decade, approximately 17% of Americans have changed their spouses. And by that, I mean they have gotten divorced and married someone else, which means it would be easier for me to convince you to divorce your current spouse and take a new one than it would be for me to convince you to vote across party lines. So when people talk about spending tens of millions or sometimes billions of dollars getting people to vote across party lines, I just want you to know they're setting that money on fire. Another fun fact, there are 39% more registered Democrats than Republicans, 39% more. This is not a 50-50 split in any way. Maybe it was a 50-50 split, I don't know, sometime before I was born, but that hasn't been the case in decades. So when you increase voter turnout, the Democratic candidate is statistically more likely to win. This is not a partisan statement. This is simply a statement of fact, which leads us to Vote America. What Vote America does is increase voter turnout, and we do that by rejecting outright the idea that low turnout is due to voter apathy. Americans don't vote because it is harder to vote in the United States than any other nation with democratically elected leadership. So we identify the roadblocks that keep people from casting ballots, and then we aggressively clear those roadblocks. When we formed Vote America under a year ago, someone on the team said, we're not fucking around over here. And I would say almost a year later, we continue to not be fucking around. So over the course of the night, I'll be joined by colleagues at various points who will introduce you to our programs. We'll bring along guests from the field, guests from other organizations, and I think we're gonna have a good night. So I'm about to be joined by two of my colleagues, Justin Jones, our Director of Fundraising, and Ben Weissman, who we all call Fuzzy, Senior Engineer at Vote America. Hello, Justin.
Hey, how's it going?
You know, it's election night. I think I put this on my calendar 4 years ago, and I would say that objectively, I'm too tired to even be stressed about the outcome of the election. But I believe you two are here to talk to us about more interesting things than my stress levels.
I don't know. That's always pretty interesting. I do enjoy hearing about that a lot.
So I believe that Justin and Fuzzy, you're going to talk to us a little bit about how much money has been spent on this election by people who aren't Vote America.
To simply say it's just an insane amount of money. You look at it's $14 billion estimated for this election, which is a 113% increase over 2016 by $7.3 billion. So the amount of money that's flooding into this election is just astronomical. And also one stat when I was pulling some stuff looking at the total broadcast spend, which Deborah, I know it's something you're favorite to rail against. In all of 2016, between Trump and Clinton, they spent $416 million. Biden this year alone spent $582 million, and Trump spent $342 million. So Biden alone almost, surpassed the entire $416 million of 2016. And if you want to add your broadcast tidbit in there, go for it.
Thank you for queuing that up. So 50% of people under 50 haven't seen a single minute of broadcast TV over the past year, which is a very interesting stat. B, rings true. I think almost everyone at Vote America is under 50. I'm pretty sure none of us have seen a minute of broadcast television. And C, what an interesting way to reach voters. So I don't know if either one of you has any statistics actually on who they reached with that money and what impact, if any, it's going to have on turnout.
I do not, but Fuzzy, I'm sure you can have some interesting turnout tidbits.
Yeah, actually, I don't know offhand how many that reaches, but I'd love to talk a little bit about sort of what we do instead of broadcast. I know we've been talking a lot about broadcast, but I think we should talk about what Vote America does instead. That is sort of a lot more impactful than broadcast. So one of our biggest programs has been texting. We designed our own sort of custom texting platform using open source tools and our team of engineers, and we sent over 100 million text messages this cycle, and in particular targeting underrepresented voters who typically have a harder time making it to the polls, who might not be as familiar with the rules around elections. And this cycle, we've seen an enormous number of first-time voters. And so it's been really important to us to reach out to those voters via text message, guide them through the process. That for many of the folks who are tuning into this broadcast, you've probably been voting for a really long time and it's sort of second nature to you. But for a lot of folks, this is their very first time. And so we're just reaching out with that sort of proactive information. And then to complement that, we've also built a custom platform called our Voter Helpline. So we work with folks from Slack and some folks from an organization called Voter Helpline to build a text-based tool for people to ask questions. And so I was helping on the helpline the other day, and a voter texted me because he's disabled, and he was wondering which of his early voting sites would be accessible. And that's the sort of stuff that often county websites, or even maybe if you call your election office, they might not be able to find for you. But by building this sort of text-based platform where voters can text in their questions, and we can have a team of volunteers, we had over 300 volunteers on that helpline today answering these questions, we can provide really personalized help.
Well, that's fantastic.
So I'm actually looking at stats. So Fuzzy, since you come from the tech team, so we did a lot of things that weren't, a lot of programs in addition to SMS this year. What were some of your favorite tech solutions that we built? I know that the tech team's motto, which is now all of our mottos, is that we build really smart solutions to really stupid problems. So I'm just wondering if you can talk us through some of the really stupid problems that voters face when they try to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite one was our e-signature technology. And so basically, there's about 12 or 13 states, it changed several times because the laws kept changing this year, where to request an absentee ballot, you needed to submit a form. And you could do that. They didn't have an online tool for that, but they did have, you were allowed to submit it via email or via fax. But for a lot of voters, that's actually really tricky. So if you don't have a printer, and Deborah likes to cite the statistic that home printer ownership is in the low single digits, and it's been that way for several decades. So the vast majority of households don't have a printer, and particularly during a pandemic, you might not be able to go over to the library to print. And so what we did was we basically made it so that you could do that entirely online. So you could go to our website, you could fill out all of the information for that form, And then we built sort of a signature system. We can actually take a picture of your signature with your phone. So it's a real wet pen on paper signature that's valid everywhere. You can take a picture of that, and then we'll sort of assemble that form for you and help you email it in or even fax it in. I had to actually call up my aunt, who is the only person I know who still owns a fax machine, and get her to unplug her landline and plug in her fax machine so we could test end-to-end this fax system. And so we helped many, many thousands of voters who otherwise would have needed to somehow find a printer or something. I don't even know how they were supposed to do it this year, but otherwise really wouldn't have been able to request ballots and be able to do that entirely online.
Actually, it's interesting when you think about it, Fuzzy. They would have had to find a printer and then a fax machine, which I think is absolutely a reasonable thing to ask people to do.
In a pandemic, they'd need to go find a fax machine.
Just out of curiosity, how well did this go over with the local election officials this year?
It was, it went over pretty well. The vast majority of counties had no problem. Sometimes they would have questions like, we don't accept electronic signatures, and we would have to explain a little bit about how this technology works. But, overall, like the sort of laws governing electronic signatures date back to the 90s and date back to sort of making fax contracts as legal as other contracts. And so overall, election officials were pretty excited about it. And a number of them sort of reached out just to thank us because they were also happy that they didn't need to sort of field as many requests from voters asking, like, how the heck am I supposed to find a fax machine?
Were there any states, possibly, because this was hilarious when it happened, that maybe threatened to arrest our entire team for helping voters to submit faxes? Do any states come to mind?
Was that a Class G felony?
North Carolina did not approve of the technology, but
Fuzzy, was this the same aunt that you got to donate to us as well?
Yes, she is also a VoteAmerica donor.
Man, we're getting her for everything. We'll come here for next year.
Is she watching? Because I feel like we should let her know that North Carolina.
I don't know if she's watching, but I'm sure she will text me immediately if she is.
She said very sweet things about you when I reached out to her. You were a very nice young man.
And so for those of you who might be wondering why I'm laughing so hard, so what we did with this pretty clever, I think, electronic signature fax solution was follow the election code exactly as written. Like the election code says that you can fax in your absentee ballot application as long as you sign it. So we built a system that lets people sign it and then fax it in. And we immediately heard from a state, you can't fax it in. You have to fax it to them and then have them fax it to us. We're like, really? Is this really what the law says? Because we're reading the law on our end, and it doesn't seem to say that at all. And I remember there was an exchange where they were like, well, this is a felony. We were like, really? They were like, actually, it's about 160 felonies. We were like, oh, fascinating. And I do remember them saying it was a Class G felony, to which we responded, Class GOTV felony, right before shutting down that project. Because 160 felonies is officially our upper limit for felonies. So Justin, Fuzzy, I'm going to bring you guys back in a few minutes to talk about some other projects that we worked on. And it looks like that I am about to be joined by Sarah Kate Ellis, who is the president and CEO of GLAD. Hey, Sarah,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. How is your election day going?
It's in the voters' hands now. So we've done everything we can possible. We know that the LGBTQ vote can make the mathematical difference in a lot of these battlegrounds. So we've been working very hard, especially for the past 18 months. And I'm optimistic. I mean, I think there's going to be a rainbow tsunami up and down the ticket. I think that we're going to see a lot of LGBTQ first-time people serving in political office, and And I'm optimistic about the top of the ticket too. I think that America always favors, America believes in equality. They say it every time we poll them, and I believe they'll vote this time for equality.
I want to go back just a second to this rainbow tsunami of voters in battleground states. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I have only ever lived on a coast, and therefore have never gotten to live in a battleground state. So yeah, can you just tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So if you look at the 2018 exit polls, what we found was that about 6% of the electorate was LGBTQ. And then when you dig a little bit deeper and you go back to 2016 and you look at some of the battlegrounds, Michigan being one of them, you can see that Trump won that state by a few votes, right? It was like, now I'm going to start quoting numbers, which I should never be allowed to do. But maybe it was 10,000-ish. There are over 60,000 eligible but unregistered LGBTQ people in Michigan. So what we decided to do was to go across the country, not just on the battlegrounds, but across the country, and get eligible but unregistered LGBTQ voters registered. And what we saw between January 2020, when we just conducted this poll in October, that we had an 8% increase in registered LGBTQ voters. 91% of them are extremely motivated to vote this year. And then when you dig a little bit deeper, it's over 70% are going to vote for pro-equality candidates. It's closer to 80, just shy of 80%. And so you see where our community is and how the power that they hold and the ability they have to get people into office. It's a very powerful voting bloc that's often overlooked.
I have to ask, what's up with the 20 to 30% of LGBTQ people who are not pro-equality?
There's 17%. There is 17%, and it is a question. I think that oftentimes they prioritize other things in their lives.
I was gonna say, sorry, this is gonna be so flippant. I was like, maybe they're just commitment phobic. Maybe they're like, the best way to keep from having to get married is to just overturn gay marriage. Because years ago, I remember friends of mine who were like, I'm not going to get married until everyone can get married, like straight male friends. Yeah. And then quietly being like, how do I keep this from happening? Because I'm going to have to get married the second gay people can get married. So I don't know. I mean, just to put a more positive spin on it, maybe they're just, afraid of commitment.
Well, hopefully we'll never have to find out. Honestly, marriage equality is up for debate. Unbeknownst to all of us that this was going to be our reality in 2020. But when the Supreme Court came back into session now 2 weeks ago, Alito and Thomas said that they're willing to hear cases that challenge Obergefell, which was the 2015 ruling on marriage equality, making marriage equality legal. And we keep seeing the court being stacked with anti-LGBTQ judges. So marriage equality is on the line. And I think a lot of LGBTQ voters understand that in this election. See, I can't let you have fun. I have to be always so serious. I'm sorry. It's my job.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I'm kind of a either laugh or smash things person.
Smash things.
And tonight I'm like, I'm just gonna, because it's patently absurd that the Supreme Court is like, you know what, we should revisit gay marriage. I'm like, you know what, we should revisit your marriage.
Right.
Like, I've got time. They're both married, right?
I believe they are. Yes.
Statistically more likely to change their spouses than their party.
Yes.
I feel like I can start working on that. So we
Well,
have,
I do think that, there is, I'm really optimistic about tonight. How are you felt tonight?
I mean, I would say I, like on a cellular level, feel significantly better than I did in 2004 and in 2016. But until we count every vote, I'm going to be somewhat anxious because the Republican Party has been relentless about trying to stop the count.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I'm like,
yeah, I think that I have so much faith in America, and I've seen it proven over and over again. So, and I've been waiting 4 years for this moment, as so many of us have been. And, we at GLAD have worked really hard, even from 2016, where we saw what was being assembled, which was an anti-LGBTQ administration. And so we started right away creating the Trump Accountability Program or Project, which has kept track of all the attacks on our community. And there have been over 180 from this administration, both in rights, our rollbacks of rights, and in rhetoric. And so I feel like this is a moment for us. And I feel that our community has been called to show up, and we do show up. So I feel really good.
that is a wonderful and positive note to end on. Sarah Kate, thank you so much for joining us. I'm now going to bring on my colleague, Annie Weinberg, who's our National Electoral Director here at VoteAmerica. Ms. Weinberg, how are we today?
Hi, Deborah. How you doing? Happy Election Day. How's it going?
Happy Election Day to you. So Annie, what's going on? What's going on today?
I don't know. Nothing much. I think voter turnout has been record-breaking all over the place, and we have some great guests, I know, coming to tell us some numbers from on the ground in some of these pivotal battlegrounds. So I'm really excited to talk to them and to see what happens, because there's a lot at stake. So, all right. So I think we are about to be joined by the amazing Angie Nixon. Hey there, Angie. I think we have you on the line. Angie, welcome. Angie Nixon is the state representative elect for Florida's 14th House District. She's an advocate for labor rights. She's an advocate for education. She is just an organizing champion, and we're so honored to have you here on election night. So welcome, Angie. How are you? All right. Angie, might not be able to hear you. She'll be coming back. There's a lot happening in Florida, we know. So we are excited to hear a little bit more from that battleground state, because it is a place where we have seen incredible early voting numbers, and that's been a huge priority at VoteAmerica. We have really invested in making sure that folks had what they need to get to the polls at every stage of their voter journey. And I think we're about to talk to Angie about that a little bit more. Angie, are you there? Can we hear you?
I'm not here.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Okay. What about now? No? Okay. I think she's on the ground. It's a big election night, so I know you're out campaigning. But Angie, we might need to come back to you in a little bit if we can't hear you. So I think I'm going to turn it back to Deborah. Hopefully we'll be able to get Angie back with us shortly, because I know she's got some really important updates and is in some pivotal counties. She's been doing amazing work, electorate expanding work, and we're excited to talk to her. So we'll work on the tech.
Thank you so much I love that. I love the little interstitial letting you know that we would be right back. So now our colleague Aisha McClendon is going to join. Aisha is our National Outreach Director. She's usually based in Texas. I believe today she is based in DC, which Aisha, I just want to be clear, I think that's a little wild and crazy.
Well, we're wild and crazy here, Deb. I mean, come on. Like, we do the things that nobody else wants to do. So we are in downtown DC right now, holding it down for Vote America. We're really excited about it.
What's going on in DC today?
Well, I mean, it's boarded up. I will tell you that it is boarded up. I passed by a location this morning and they were standing outside. I haven't heard of any issues on the grounds, but you never know. Looks like it's about 7:30, so polls are closed here. So I'm sure we'll be hearing about some things soon. So gotta love our nation's capital.
San Francisco is also being boarded up, and it took me like a full minute yesterday to understand what was going on. I was like, why is Bloomingdale's boarding up? Are they going to paint a mural? Because I am like bizarrely optimistic as I go through life. It's like a childlike wonder. And then I was like, there's an election coming and we're afraid of civil unrest.
Right. But so this is a new thing, right? Like, I don't remember I'm 44, so I've been through a few elections. I don't remember them ever boarding things up the way that they are this time. This is very new to me.
I was going to ask you that. I'm 43, and I was like, I just don't feel like we ordinarily board things up. But we're going to be super positive right now, and I'm going to turn this over to you. And I believe we are about to be joined by Don Calloway. So I will hand the stage over to you.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hello. Well, it is so great to have you on tonight, Mr. Calloway. I know you are doing amazing things with the National Voter Protection Action Fund. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you all do and why?
It's always great to be with you, my dear sister Aisha J. McClendon from Vote. Sorry, I wear my glasses, so I figured I would do my Cornell West invitation. It has been an exhausting cycle for us. We spend election years sending crowdfunding small amounts via our hashtag I Got Five on Voter Protection campaign, and sending grants, small grants, sizable grants actually, to grassroots organizations on the ground in key states that have actionable, presentable voter protection plans. So we're really excited to have funded a couple of different organizations. Souls to the Polls in Milwaukee. We know how important Wisconsin is and how important it was in 2016 to the overall result we had. Exciting levels of turnout in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, and that is because of the work of the amazing Kayla Reed and Action St. Louis. So if you want to know if anybody out there is looking for the Messiah, Google the name Kayla Reed, Kayla-Reed. She is an original activist and organizer and has taken all the rage and all of the righteous indignation from Ferguson up to now and channeled it into an organization she started called Action St. Louis, which is just a remarkable national model for registering people, getting folks engaged in local, municipal, countywide races so that they're ready for the moments like this. Not only ready as voters, but ready as legitimate organizers who are ready to get out there and make a difference. So we gave a grant to Action St. Louis. We're very excited about that. And, a few other orgs around the country. But we're really excited about what happens tomorrow and looking to state houses across the country and county legislatures across the country, because voter suppression is won or lost at the policy level, as you know. And we have an aggressive anti-suppression agenda that we look forward to filing all around the country in January.
Awesome. And, before we close, I'd love to hear, I know you keep your ear to the ground on Missouri. Are you hearing anything that's going on there? Anything that we should be aware of, or should we push people to the polls? They've got 30 minutes left. What would you say to people in Missouri right now?
Very exciting opportunity in St. Louis County for State Senator Jill Shoup to flip a red seat that currently belongs to Ann Wagner and has for the last 10 years. That means that if you team Jill Shoup with the dynamic, the amazing Sister Cori Bush out of Missouri's 1st District, you perhaps will have 2 women and 2 brand new members of Congress representing the St. Louis metro area. So that's exciting. But we're also very excited about Sister Nicole Galloway, who is currently the state auditor, and she is the only Democratic statewide officer who will put up and has put up an extraordinarily game challenge to the Trumpist Missouri Governor Mike Parson, who has failed on COVID back home in Missouri every bit as badly as Trump has failed on COVID federally. So we're looking forward to an exciting race from Nicole Galloway, spearheaded by your brother, my brother, the great Calvin Harris back in St. Louis. Amazing. But I will say before you close, and I know you're running long, Sister Aisha, you know, we watch this stuff almost like a sport, but I think it's important that all of us kind of take time and recognize that for years and years, people put their lives and souls into working these elections, from organizing, from being on campaign staffs, being in the streets, knocking doors, volunteers, but they do it because that they believe in the values that their candidates and their parties espouse, and they believe that we can take this country kicking and screaming to a better place. We always should take a moment on election nights to just thank the people who have given of their time and treasure to help make this country realize her better angels.
Well, thank you so much. You are definitely one of the treasures, Don. So we're so happy to have you, and thank you so much. We're going to send it back over to the West Coast. I think Deborah is waiting and ready to take over.
Oh, Aisha, no, I'm going right back to you because next up, you are going to be chatting with Wendy Wilson, who is the news director of BET Digital. BET's been a partner of ours this year. I believe that is a partnership that you yourself helped form. So I am bringing you right back on over to hang out with me, Aisha.
Awesome. So great. I think that she is, I think we're going to see what's going on. And okay. Or maybe I think Justin might be back. Is Justin backstage? We'd love to see him right now. There he is.
Of my office.
You gotta love 2020. We're all like, no, I'm totally not sitting in my house with a step and repeat behind me. I'm actually on the stage. We're all together.
Yeah.
In our
I'm on the other side of your little step and repeat there, actually.
Yeah, no, we're in the VoteAmerica.
I know. I can look behind me. You're right there. So I'm going to go because I know y'all are going to do a quick election update and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm actually, okay, Justin, so you're on the ground in Virginia. You live in the future. It's 3 hours ahead. What's going on?
Well, it's dark outside. I don't see much going on, but I do have an update out of Georgia here. Apparently, we're not going to get results tonight. Fulton County absentee ballot. The processing of the ballots has been delayed 4 hours due to a burst pipe, but no ballots have been damaged, thankfully. So it's unfortunate that the results from Georgia, we're not going to see those immediately. That was one that I was following very closely tonight, just considering all the elections in Georgia.
I mean, look, I'm just going to ask, was someone stuffing the ballots into a pipe? Is that what caused the pipe to burst? Because I'm not actually seeing the connection here between a burst pipe and counting.
I mean, crazy things have happened here in Virginia. We also had the last day of voter registration. Crews cut a what was it? Why can I blank it right now? The internet line.
The fiber optic line. Oh,
yeah, they hit the fiber optic line right down the street in the next county over, and so the whole entire. So I mean, these crazy things do happen.
Isn't call before you dig pretty much a national thing? Like, doesn't someone let you know where you can't dig a hole? Those of you at home or who aren't based in Virginia lost internet because someone dug a hole through the fiber optic line, coincidentally, on the last day of voter registration. So it would not be particularly surprising if someone was stuffing the ballots in Georgia into a pipe. What else is going? What time do Florida polls close? I see that we're looking.
7 o'clock. They've already closed.
Oh, they've closed. Are we hearing any news yet out of Florida?
Yes, we are. So the balloting is initially coming back right now. I can't actually, it's really small on my screen, so it's kind of hard to see. So I'm not actually sure what we're looking at right now because I can't tell. It's so small. Let me pull it up real quick here by Florida. So there's about 4 million votes counted thus far for Florida. I'm sorry, for Biden, 3.8 million for Trump out of 7.8 million. So Biden is ahead right now with these initial results. 7.8 million votes total, which is just an astounding amount. We can actually see it by the different counties here. If you look at certain counties like Miami-Dade, they have 103% compared to 2016. Which is a really important one. Osceola, which is up in the middle of the state, 101.9%. So these are some of the states that are or some of the counties that are really going to be deciding the elections. A lot of these, Obama won back in 2008 and 12, and then they flipped for Trump. So if these ones start trending the other direction, the turnout is a really good sign here for us as a nonprofit organization, nonpartisan.
I think it's safe to say whenever we talk about turnout, turnout increasing is in fact good for democracy. Vote America, we are a democracy organization. And Justin, I don't know if you are controlling the screen, but I want people at home to know what we're looking at. It's the Election Night Integrity Project, which was built by Data for Progress with support from the Vote America team. It's super interesting. You guys can find it at home at 2020.dataforprogress.org. And what it is showing specifically is the count as a percentage of 2016 turnout as the whole. I know that we've all seen for years now that with 1% of precincts reporting, someone will call the election or declare a winner. And this is an attempt to stop that from happening prematurely by showing us the percentage ballots cast, the number of ballots cast as a percentage of 2016 so that we are not hasty in drawing our conclusions. And so I believe that Justin and I are out of time for this segment, but folks should follow at home at 2020.dataforprogress.org. And now I will bring Aisha back. And I will apologize for her. Aisha, I skipped ahead 2 guests earlier. You like that, right? That was nice.
I like that. It's like the alphabets on our meetings, right? Like we're like, oh, is it A? I don't know. Like, I don't know the alphabet. Like, we got it. We got it.
You know what I'm trying to recreate right now? The sense of wonder and surprise that is Election Day. Because Election Day is always a surprise for me. No matter who wins, there is something that I just did not predict. And so I did that too just now. I said the wrong part of the agenda, of the schedule so that you would have to deal with this on the fly, because honestly, that's how Election Day is. We've got hours left. Who knows what is going to happen?
We don't know. I don't know. We're just all nimble. That's what we do here. There's an issue. We just pivot and we figure it out and we keep going. So I know that we have Reverend Melanie Mullen, who's amazing, and she's going to pivot and tell us what the church is doing during this election cycle as well. Hello, Reverend Mullen. How are you?
Hello, Aisha. I am great. And you are amazing. I think we are all really excited. We're engaged. The church has probably been the most engaged that many priests and parishioners ever seen. And we have a lot of community members to thank for that. Vote America, our partners who helped and trained us to get ready, from the Lawyers and Callers, the Skinner Institute, the Poor People's Campaign. We've had hundreds of clergy and lay people get ready to be present on Election Day in a way that they probably never thought was possible before. We had poll chaplains.
Tell us a little bit about the poll chaplains. I know that was a new thing for you all. And why did you choose to do those on the ground this year?
I think it was a little bit of the breath of the serendipitous Holy Spirit, but also a calling to figure out what can we do to be present and use what we've got. And bishops, clergy, deacons, lay folks decided that they wanted to not just vote and not just call their friends, but show up. And so we had squads from New York City to Seattle, Washington go out and be buddies for folks voting today. There were lovely folks in St. Louis, Missouri said they discovered the joy of bringing folding chairs and water bottles as people waited in line. People were dancing in Alabama, and they were giving out food in Raleigh, North Carolina. So all over the country, people found their own way to not just be present, but really kind of sew together threads of our community. Just be good old-fashioned Americans again who are supporting each other doing the sacred right vote.
That's amazing. And I know, so Reverend Mullen, I know that you are with the National Episcopal Church and you have this amazing long title. And can you tell me a little bit about what that means during election cycles, and what happens in January? How does your work extend past the election today?
Yeah, well, I'm the Director of Reconciliation, Justice, and Creation Care for the Episcopal Church. And I get to work on behalf of our whole denomination, thinking about all the ways we do social justice, we fight poverty, we care for the environment. And so all of these causes are things that are critical in this election cycle. We're trying to learn that we don't just care about them and volunteer for them, but we vote about them too. And we talk to our friends and neighbors about them. They are important values for us from the Bible, from our faith, and we can talk about them in public and in politics because we want to see this world get healed and get better. And that goes on after the election. We are also preparing. This might be a long season. Perhaps there might be weeks in which there might be uncertainty or people might feel afraid. And so we're taking a deep breath and acknowledging that we think all humans are precious and their votes are sacred, and we will just relax and wait and want every single vote to get counted. And then there's still more work to do. We're still thinking about advocacy, engagement, and protesting in ways in which we live our gospel values, because people fought and died for these. My own grandmother kept her mimeographed election phone tree in her Bible. And I always wondered what that was. It's that important for people of faith to make this community a place that's good and healthy and looks like the vision of God that they have. So we're excited. Yeah.
That is so amazing. And, we really thank you so much for your partnership. We know how important this is to you all, and it's great to have, such a great opportunity to work with you. And we look forward to keeping that relationship, and we will see you next election cycle.
Thank you so much, Reverend
Mullen. So next we have Wendy Wilson from BET, who will be joining us. Hello, Miss Wilson.
Hi there. I'm doing very well, Aisha. How are you?
I love your backdrop. It's like so fancy and perfect. It's like, I love it.
Thank you.
In this season, we all get to look in people's homes, what's going on. You get to find out so much from somebody from their backdrop, right?
Yeah, exactly. It could be a little distracting at times as well, right?
I know.
But we wanted people to focus tonight. We want people to be laser focused on this incredible, incredible moment in history.
It's so important. And, I want to just start off by saying that, we are so honored to have been able to be a partner with you for National Black Voter Day. Can you tell us to do that this year? I know it was the inaugural year.
Yes, it's the first time we've done it. 2020 has been a hard year for many, many people, right? For many reasons, and some of it very obvious. But we knew that this was going to be the year for the census, and we knew that this was going to be an election year. And so with those two pivotal moments in the year, we really wanted to concentrate on how do we galvanize the Black community? How do we get people engaged and in tune with their Black voices and their Black power, and putting those together to activate real change in this country. And so Reclaim Your Vote is really that social campaign that allows us to help the community bring everyone together, bring partners together to actualize that, whether it's through the census and making sure that people are counted, making sure that people are represented so that their communities are represented properly, or whether it's through encouraging people to go out and vote. And if you are voting, making sure that you create a plan around voting.
Mm-hmm. No, it was perfect. It was a great partnership for us because one of the things that I love about Vote America is we understand that power looks different for different people. Absolutely. And we definitely want to meet people where they are and not make people feel uncomfortable about what they don't know, and be available to break any barriers that might come across when they're trying to vote and create a plan for voting. So when you all created this program, how did you see that it impacted people on the ground and allowed for an uptick in the number of registrations that happened after?
Right. So on BET.com, we had portals and that allowed people to go to vote.org, and that, well, again, you can go register if you aren't registered already, or check your registration. That was one of the two really important areas that we wanted to concentrate on. The other area is that we wanted to target specific groups. So we are looking specifically at engaging Black male voters. And we know from both campaigns that that is a group that is especially important in this campaign. But we also wanted to focus specifically on those individuals who are returning to society. So those individuals who are formerly incarcerated who may not know whether or not they can vote. It really depends on the individual state that you're in. We focus specifically on Florida, working with different organizations to get out the word, to educate, to let people know that there are actually resources available. Because one of the things that even I didn't even know until I started my reporting is that there are fees associated with getting the opportunity to vote again if you are a returning citizen. So some of the individuals can't afford those fees. There are resources out there that are very helpful, and that others have contributed to, that we hopefully have aligned people with. And that was really the point. We wanted to galvanize folks without them feeling like we were preaching or we were, leading people in any kind of way. This is a nonpartisan effort, but what it really was supposed to do is to let people know that their power and their voices are going to be heard this year in more ways than one, right? 12% of the electorate are Black citizens of this country. And so we know how important our voices are. The problem is we have to make sure that the candidates also know that too.
And that's part of the hardest problem. I can't even speak. That is one of the hardest problems, right? Is figuring and letting people know that what their power is and how important they are and why they need to go vote. So I just want to tell you, thank you so much, Wendy. We hope that you all continue this program. It was great. It was an amazing day for us to be able to partner, a few
and we
weeks
thank
ago.
you for Vote America for your partnership as well. It was an amazing partnership, and we thank you so much for your contribution to that.
Great, and have a great election day. And I am going to actually cut back over to Deb. I know she is over on the West Coast making it happen. And I will see you all in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Aisha. And Justin's going to come back on. Justin and I are refreshing various screens on the side. Justin, what's the latest?
I have like the Death Star of screens going on here all around me. So first, a few things then. We're going to call, a few races have been called. So Virginia, where I am here, has gone for Vice President Biden, as well as Vermont, which equals about 16 electoral votes. And then we have West Virginia and Kentucky both going for President Trump here. So some initial returns coming in. We have some polls closing in the next 11 minutes. At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Pennsylvania, Maine, Missouri, Mississippi, and Alabama closing. So we should start getting some results in from those states initially as well. Why don't we go back to Florida? And we're seeing some interesting things here in Florida. First of all, the total votes counted is now just about 100,000 fewer than the total votes cast in 2016 in Florida. So the turnout in Florida is just through the roof. Biden has also now surpassed the total number of votes Hillary got in Florida in 2016. So just some astounding numbers here in Florida. And I hope we're part of this, considering all the programs that we ran in Florida with our campus and our P2P texting and everything else we did in Florida. And Deborah, I know from day one, you've been saying Florida is, an intense part of our focus. So I'm glad we've been there since day one with our, I don't want to say troops on the ground, but with our footprint all over the state.
It's actually really interesting because earlier this year, I had a pretty fierce argument with someone over whether or not Florida was still competitive, which does stand out as one of the dumbest conversations I've had in 2020. And please keep in mind that 2020 has been an all-around absurd year. So I don't know, Justin, how do you feel? Florida, a competitive state?
I was actually in the Florida camp of abandoning it because I feel like it's the graveyard of Democratic aspirations every year. So, and funny is, my family, my dad lives in Florida, and I'm like, I never want to hear about it. I'm writing you off the entire state. So I'm glad to see Florida is finally getting some sense, and I imagine it has to do with a lot of the seniors in the state, in the suburban areas outside of Tampa and Orlando and Miami that's driving a lot of this change.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Florida is demographically, it's a very diverse state. And it's also a state that leans really heavily into voter suppression. 1 in 5 Black people in Florida cannot vote because of a felony conviction. Because Florida is one of those states where once you get a felony conviction, you couldn't ever register to vote again. And then Amendment 4 passed and then was blocked again. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I cannot remember where that ended. Justin, do you remember where we landed with the amendment? Oh, because then it was like, okay, well, you can vote, but you have to pay your fines. And then the state wouldn't just close how much money people owed in order to register.
That's what, and remember, Mike Bloomberg came in and dropped like $20 million to help pay off some of those fines. And I think that some of the issue on the county level or on the state level was that a lot of people, they couldn't even find out what the amount of their fine was.
No,
and
exactly. So, Florida was like, well, you can't vote until you pay off your fines. And people are like, well, how much do I owe you? And they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, okay, now I'm not a lawyer, but if you don't know, I'm going to say you don't know. And therefore it's nothing. You're just assuming these people owe money. So I think one of the reasons that people were giving up on Florida isn't that it was demographically or because it wasn't demographically or racially diverse, but because Florida has really perfected voter suppression to such an extent that playing in Florida feels like hitting your own hand with a ball peen hammer. But, you know, we'll see how Florida plays out. So actually, we're bringing Aisha back on from DC. Aisha, are you with us?
I'm here.
What have we missed in the past 5 minutes in DC?
Nothing. I was looking at results and listening to y'all because I'm like laser focused on Texas and Florida right now. So like when he started talking about Florida, I was like, and then of course my home state, I'm like, what's going on? Where are we? So yes.
Well, I'm going to hand things back to you for 5.
Awesome. Well, I understand that I am next going to be speaking with Mr. Kevin Clayton. Hello, Mr. Clayton. How are you?
Well, Aisha, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so nice to cyber meet you. You know, like this is what we do now in COVID.
I know, right?
So I know that you work for the Cavaliers and you are and you're doing a lot of work this cycle. Can you tell us a little bit about your role with the organization and why you all have gotten so involved, in particular this cycle instead of in other cycles?
Yeah, well, sure, absolutely. So I want to make sure that everyone knows it's the Cleveland Cavaliers. So when you say that, people may think it's like the Virginia Cavaliers or somebody else.
There's not enough Cavaliers. Like, what are you talking about? Come on now.
Hey, nothing beats clarity like clarity, right? Yeah. So you know, it's interesting because we are very proud of what we've been able to do in this voting cycle. And a lot of that happened right after the George Floyd murder. And one of the things that we talked about as a team and as a league, it's how can we be more socially responsible? How can we, you know, leverage our assets to be a part of the solution? And we actually run Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, which is the building in which the Cavaliers play in. And today was a great day for us because we were the second NBA team to declare their building as a polling place. And so we were a polling place. We actually did a voter registration drive early on. We have actually partnered with our other 2 sports teams that are in Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Indians, so that we could leverage all 3 of our professional sports assets to help drive voter education, voter registration, early voting, and now day of voting. So it's a great day in Cleveland as our sports teams have really stepped up.
And can you tell us a little bit about why you all chose to be a voting location?
Yeah, so our building sits right in the middle of downtown Cleveland, and it is a part of Cleveland as it relates to, you know, all the things that we do. So it's not just basketball. We have a number of different community events and concerts and things of that nature. So we have, by design, wanted our building to be a part of the community, not just an entertainment or sports venue. So this is just an extension of our vision of connecting to the downtown community in Cleveland. And we had 3 different precincts that actually voted under our polling jurisdiction. And it was because it's the fabric of who we are. It's in our values to make sure that we actually do more than just kind of entertain on the basketball court. That we have we know we have a seat at the table. We have a responsibility to be socially conscious and to also be civic minded. And civic engagement is one of our core values.
So when you talk about civic engagement, can you give me a little bit more information on that? Was that webinars? Were you going out into the community? What did that look like for you all?
Sure. So from a civic engagement, and I'll say pre-COVID, or actually let me say post-COVID, because that's really the times that we're in. We've had a number of webinars where we've actually engaged with the NAACP and the Urban League and other different civic organizations in Cleveland to actually begin to drive the conversation around not only just voting, volunteerism. Last week, we partnered with the food bank and we had a food drive out of our building. So that wasn't necessarily a virtual event. It was something in which we did to specifically know that there are hurting families in Cleveland. Our building is a prime location, and the food bank partnered with us. And then we partnered with the state of Ohio to provide PPE packages along with the food. We also have partnered with our law enforcement agencies in Northeast Ohio, and we've had several conversations on our website with the mayor, our county executive, our police chief, and others to talk about what we can do as a sports team in helping the community to rally around the challenges that we have with law enforcement and the disengagement with Black and brown communities, and how can we really just convene the conversation, of which we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club in Cleveland to have conversations last week with our law enforcement agencies in Cleveland to try to bridge the gap between the fear on both sides of law enforcement and youth so that there could be conversation and dialogue.
Well, I just want to tell you thank you. I mean, that is amazing. And thank you so much for opening your doors during this cycle, this election cycle, to be a voting location. I know that's not easy, and we are just so thankful here at Vote America. And thank you for coming on. I know we're going to extend this conversation as we progress into what it looks like tomorrow after the election tonight. And thank you again for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. And Alicia, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Hello, how are you?
Great. How are you doing tonight, Aisha?
I'm good, Alan. It's so nice to meet you.
Likewise, and hopefully it's going to be a great night.
We're hoping for a good night. We are nonpartisan, so it's going to be a great night no matter what happens for us, right?
As many people as can vote as possible.
That's right. We want as many people to vote without any obstacles. So, Alan, can you tell me a little bit about what you do at St. John's Community Services?
Yeah, so our mission at St. John's is to advance inclusive communities where every person, regardless of circumstance, has the right and opportunity to live their best life. So essentially, we are about breaking down barriers and helping support people, fulfill their dreams and see them come true.
And what does that mean for you? What is their dreams? What does that mean for you?
So we work with a lot of people that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We work with people experiencing homelessness, and we work with elders in the community. And so for each of them, that dream is unique. And so our team comes alongside of them, meets them where they are, and really tries to figure out what do they need in order to live their fullest life in our community. So first, we want to make sure that they're integrated fully into the community and included. We want to make sure that they have power and control over their lives and the decisions that they want to make, whether it's volunteering in the community, whether it's finding employment, whatever it might be. We want them to have the opportunity to navigate their life to the fullest.
And how has that work evolved as we've gone through COVID in this election cycle?
It's been really challenging. I mean, a lot of the people that we support and serve are very vulnerable. And unfortunately, we've had team members that have passed away due to COVID. COVID is a very real threat to the people that we support and us individually. And so it's been challenging. Our team has had to pivot in a million ways to make sure that the people we support are safe. Oftentimes that means staff working 12-hour shifts. In some situations, in the peak of COVID, especially here in DC, we were locking down homes, and we had staff members volunteer to live 100% with people they support in some situations for 30 days.
Wow, that is amazing, especially in times like this. And especially as we got closer to the election, I know that you all were trying to figure out ways to help your constituents be able to vote, to register, and then be able to go and vote. And I also know that you all actually use our tools. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to use Vote America's tools and how they were helpful or not helpful? I know they were helpful, but I'll give that option.
Yeah, we love our partnership with Vote America because it really hits that sweet spot with our mission. The people that we support have every right to participate in this society and in the democratic process. They should have their voice heard. And so your tools made it possible for them to find out about polling locations, to be able to register to vote, to be able to how they could vote by mail or absentee. So those are all crucial. In DC alone, we had almost 100% of the individuals we support vote by mail. And for those that wanted to vote early, our staff went alongside with them and advocated, because in a lot of situations, they would face discrimination from people that might believe that the person supporting them, that the assistant there is going to vote on their behalf, where really they just need help navigating the tools of voting. So it really has gone a long way for us to be able to have that Vote America partnership.
Well, that is so good to hear. And I'm so happy that you all were able to use the tools. I think a lot about when you talk about absentee voting or voting by mail. We also season, we decided to create a tool so that you could track the ballot as well, because we saw that people needed to know what was going on. They were a little concerned about some things that they were hearing. And so our amazing tech team just came up with an idea to track ballots online so that people could figure out where they were going. Just one more way to make people more comfortable in what they were doing. So, Alan, I just want to thank you. I know that this relationship is going to last a lifetime because we are so happy to have you. And happy election night. And if there's anything we can do, please let us know.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Happy election night to you as well.
Thank you. And now we have Deborah. Where is she? There she is. Let's go.
I actually haven't gone anywhere physically. Still watching things come in. Watching the voters. Alabama was called for Trump, and Mississippi. I am not shocked. Let's see. Anything?
Yeah. Who was I supposed to? Oh, let me give you my shocked face. Oh.
Massachusetts was called for Biden. Another shock. Not seeing anything surprising yet. No battleground states have come in. But speaking of coming in, we're now going to bring Fuzzy back on. Fuzzy is his obviously given name, not a nickname that we call him by. And Fuzzy.
My parents are actually really upset that I go by Fuzzy. They're like, we spent so long coming up with the name Ben, and it had all this meaning and stuff, and now everybody calls me Fuzzy.
Ben, I'll call you Ben if you're watching. And we have Charlotte Swayze from Data for Progress here. And honestly, I'm going to turn this over to you two to talk about the Election Night Integrity Project and just nerd out on data, which is, of course, what I'm doing on the side. And it's why I keep looking off screen.
Well, it's great to be here. So I'm the VP of Data for Progress for polling and data, and then also the head of our Election Night Integrity Project, which is our election night dashboard. So we are both fully in the weeds of updating and making comments and looking at things as they come in. So we're running a dashboard that is public, so anyone can go click on this at 2020.dataforprogress.org, where we are using the AP feed to report all of this data as it comes in. And we tried to make this basically as close as possible to what you'd see if you were in a campaign boiler room. So it'll really give you that context you need to understand. So if you click on a state that's very conservative or something like that, you'll see those previous benchmarks if you look on kind of the party view. So you'll understand why these states are coming in the way they are, rather than just having numbers tossed at you with no context. There's also no needles. There's no numbers floating around. There's no percentages. And we're trying to bring as much calm as we can to what is obviously a very stressful evening.
And Charlotte, one of the things that I was really interested in when I first saw the prototypes of this is that we're sort of reporting progress based on votes counted and benchmarking that against 2016, as opposed to many outlets that are reporting number of counties reporting. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about why you decided to use that benchmark as opposed to precincts reporting?
Yeah, I don't care for precincts reporting as a benchmark. So normally what happens is that if you're looking at results from a state, individual precincts, which are these sort of voting specific geographic units, will report votes. And because most of the voting is in person, you'll kind of get all the votes at one time. And so you'll use precincts reporting as like a proxy for what % of the overall vote is in. This cycle, we're getting reports that are very clearly just early vote or just in-person vote. And you can't use that metric. And we knew this months back when we started prototyping this. So we're benchmarking everything against 2016 as almost a turnout estimate. Obviously, we're smashing that turnout record in a lot of places, but we feel that gives you a better sense of how many votes are still out there, rather than making it feel that just because you have some information from every geography that you have all of the information, when that's really not true.
Yeah, and I guess what are other ways in which sort of the record amount of early vote turnout and vote by mail turnout is affecting how we analyze and how we understand these results as they come in tonight?
Yeah, I'm definitely spending a lot more time sort of trying to tease out what mode of voting these results represent. I mean, everyone's staring at Florida, and we got their results really early in the night, and it's still kind of an open question about if those results are complete or if they're just early vote that represents 100% of 2016 turnout. Because we know from a few days ago that we were hitting number of votes cast in 2016 with just votes cast before Election Day.
And I'm curious, if you were running an election office, like, I guess, how would you change how you would report data to make it easier for folks like yourself, but also just the general public to sort of understand these results as we see them on election night?
Oh, man. I mean, I think like the election offices are in a very tough spot, right? Like either they give us partials as they count, and then we get these weird fluctuations because of their different boxes of votes or their different modes, or they hold all of them until they're done counting, and then all of us are hitting refresh until 3 a.m, waiting for that last bit to get counted so we get all the results. I think I would probably start publishing them like as I count, but then also I would love to have some sort of standard system where they tell us the mode of results and how many they think are left, and these bits of information that we don't really get.
Yeah, and I guess I'm curious if we click into Florida on this map, because that's sort of where we've seen more results reported from Florida. I guess, can you give us an overview of where we're at in Florida? What does this tell you, and what are sort of still the unknowns for the night?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of results reported from Florida. I think we're over 100% of 2016 votes so far. And in most places, they look to be adhering pretty closely to those 2016 margins. A place I'm really staring at right now is Miami-Dade, which is like that blue county right at the very bottom. And so that one hasn't actually updated its number of votes in a while. It's sort of been hanging out at this, I wonder if our chart's broken. It's been hanging out at this like results dump we got at like 7:15 and hasn't been updating, which is really giving me a headache because I would love to have more information from them. But yeah, so that's obviously a place where Democrats are really looking at the results and kind of worrying about it. And so that's sort of where my eyes are right now.
Yeah.
Charlotte, I can confirm, because I've been zooming in, that so far for Florida, we're seeing 105% of the 2016 turnout. I would also like to know if that's just the early vote, if they're counting the mail-in ballots, like if there are just a lot of people cramming into the polls right now on Election Day. Still, that's great. I mean, we do actually run a voter turnout organization, so anytime turnout is higher, like, is a cause for celebration.
Yeah, turnout has been
for the country.
Enormous.
Cool. I think, okay, so we still have a few minutes left. What else can you tell us about this project, which I would like to say, if anyone at home isn't actually looking at it, you really should. This is so much more interesting, I think, than watching the needles bounce around and talking about percentages and precincts and things like that. And I hope that by 2022, this is how, we report results. So what else can you tell us that's going on the map that's interesting.
Yeah. So one of my favorite features actually that we added today is we added the set of swing counties and sort of key counties down below this national map. So it's just a series of little boxes, but if you mouse over them, they're actually individual counties that we think are important. And so this is one of our ways of kind of highlighting these places that we think are interesting indicators, things people should be paying attention to, because it can be really hard to like hold in your head this list of counties if you're not an election expert. And so we know that you'll see kind of Broward County and Polk and Miami-Dade on Twitter, but we wanted to actually give you this listing of them with context right in front of you so that people could feel a little bit more looped in and not have to rely on like frantic Googling or people being good about giving context in their tweets.
And Charlotte, as the boxes fill in and become darker, darker represents a greater percentage of the votes cast in 2016.
That's right.
Yeah. Excellent.
We have our scales set up to handle, I think we put it at 150% of 2016 as a guess as to how much vote we'll get. But yeah, so the darker places have more votes compared to their results in 2016. So trying to benchmark it against a quote unquote normal amount of votes in that state or in that county.
Yeah, I mean, 2016 was, I believe, 60.2% of the voting eligible population, which pretty much is par for the course for presidential level turnout this year. Entirely possible. We're going to see 65% of the voting eligible population, which would still have us trailing almost the entire world when it comes to democratically elected countries with democratically elected leadership, but shattering American records.
Yeah.
And I will take record shattering wherever I can get it. Fuzzy, Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us. I believe we have both of you back in a little bit. And now my colleague, Annie Weinberg. I am so sorry. Now, Ashley Spillane, President and CEO of Impactful, will be joining us. Ashley, hello.
Hello, happy election night.
People say that, and I'm always like, how about just election night? Hello, it's election night. It's just, we don't have a vested outcome, interest in the outcome, but also you really do never know.
Yeah, but
how election night will be.
The interest is in getting to this point in the cycle, and we did it, and that's the most exciting thing.
Go team! Everyone is still awake. So Ashley, you launched 2 projects this year, both of which were incredibly awesome. I would like for you to talk to us about Power to the Polls and Pizza to the Polls. Tell us about both of them. I know you were, and I think you were behind a third one, but it is hard to keep up with you. So start with Power to the Polls.
We are so lucky to get to work with a ton of amazing nonprofits and companies and philanthropists that are, care a great deal about voter participation and making sure that everybody can have their voice heard. One of the things that was really unique about 2020, especially in the middle of the pandemic, was, issues were cropping up really quickly that we needed to solve fast for. One of them was a poll worker shortage. I mean, at one point we were projecting to be 1 million poll workers short this cycle, so that we're going to have to close hundreds, if not thousands, of polling locations nationwide. And so a group of folks got together and launched Power the Polls. And it was a collaboration between a number of nonprofit organizations, a number of companies. I think ultimately over close to 100 companies got involved and started giving time off to their employees and encouraging their consumers to get out there and get involved. And they, Power the Polls ultimately recruited over 700,000 poll workers to fill these shortages. And then was working with the local election officials to place them, to make sure that once someone signed up on the site, they could actually get connected to the local level, go through the training. And the team there just did such an amazing job. They were doing, they weren't doing the official trainings, but they were having prep rallies so that folks could come together and talk about what it was like to be a first-time poll worker. So many young people who raised their hand and said, yes, I want to help out. Yes, I want to do something to be helpful in this election. So if anybody was at the polls, this week, last week, today. You saw these election heroes out there, and hopefully you gave them some thanks on your way out of the polling booth. Pizza to the Polls is an organization that has been around for the last 4 years, started by a group of volunteers who have full-time jobs. It's an all-volunteer organization prior to this year, and they saw an opportunity to just do this like really awesome thing of making sure people who go to polling places and get stuck in long lines have a cool snack to keep them there. So they deliver pizzas to polling places with long lines. This year, they worked with Uber Eats, Milk Bar, Shake Shack, the Salty, Kind. There were so many people who pitched in food, and they were able to put 200, and I think it was almost 275 food trucks on the road in 29 cities, showing up to these polling places with long lines and handing out food to anybody nearby. And it was a really amazing service that they were providing, and like a good feel-good story going into this otherwise anxiety-inducing election. So
this is why I like these two projects. I feel like they're such good bookends. One is there is a catastrophic shortage of poll workers, and the other one is like people are going to get hungry.
Yeah.
While they wait in those lines.
I mean, it was actually really beautiful because it came full circle where the food was actually outside available to the poll workers who were on the inside doing stuff. So we would have people who signed up through Power the Polls coming outside, tweeting a little picture at us about the food they were getting for Pizza to the Polls. So it was really sweet.
This is great. Do you think you'll continue both organizations? Again, I know you love to start things, so
I think both. I think they've both provided such an invaluable service this time around, and they've gotten so many more people fired up and inspired that hopefully they'll be around for years to come for sure.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to leave everyone with one final stat before you launch this organization, the Power to the Polls. 60% of poll workers were over 50 years old. And wait, no, I'm getting it wrong. Over 60. And that is a problem during a pandemic when older people especially are being advised to stay home. So thank you for this service. This was a critical gap that you guys filled. It's great to see you.
And hopefully all of those young people who raised their hand this year are so excited to go back that they're doing this again next year and the year after. So
I've been getting texts all night from friends who are working the polls. Yeah. So I think there's a good chance. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Stay on with us. And we have made it to election night. Ashley is, of course, an optimist. Justin, hello. Welcome back. I'm catching on now. You come on the quarter hour. Pattern recognition is my strong suit. Speaking of patterns, Justin, what's going on? What's going on the ground?
Lots of updates here. So we have had some states called in the past, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And so for Biden, we have Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Not a lot of shocks here. Trump, we have Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. But we really want to get into Ohio because there's something interesting happening in Delaware County, which is kind of in the middle of the state here. And it's a long time Republican GOP stronghold. In 2016, Trump won it by a healthy margin. Pulling it up here. I just looked it up a second ago. What was it? He won it by basically 55-39. And right now, the initial results we're seeing come back is Biden's winning at 54-44, so a 10-point margin right now in Delaware. And I think large reason that you can see the turnout there, which is being highlighted within Delaware County. So interesting movement in Ohio. Ohio is kind of one of the states also that I kind of wrote off in 2020 as well. But I'm glad you had faith in the state, just like Florida.
That's interesting because I perhaps did write Ohio off. And by write off, just to be clear, what Justin and I mean is that we are interested in states that are still fiercely competitive. And I have not seen Ohio as competitive in quite some time. Same for Virginia. I think it's easy for people to forget that Virginia was a battleground state for a very long time. And now we're like, oh no, Virginia is a blue state. It's kind of like, that is rather recent. But again, elections are filled with surprises.
It's funny you mentioned that because basically Virginia was called less than an hour after the polls closed. And you think just about, 10 years ago, it was a pretty battleground state that shifted red. And so you're seeing a lot of these shifts in a lot of these states.
Anything else that you're keeping an eye on right now? I don't know who is driving the screen right now, but if you click on the option that shows vote count by party, that's interesting. That's when the map starts lighting up. Texas was blue just a few minutes ago, and now it's red. This is and it's pale in both cases because we're talking about razor thin margins right now. 3.4 million votes counted in Texas. That's almost nothing. It's interesting. Alabama right now on the map is blue, even though Alabama was called for Trump. And you know what? Alabama is a state that I personally find very interesting. 32% of the registered voters in Alabama are Black. 98% of those voters are Democrats, and at least 20% of the white voters are Democrats. And Alabama is actually a far more competitive state than most people would think, which is why they elected a Democrat in 2017 in a race that almost no one thought was winnable for a Democrat. Pennsylvania is looking pretty blue. That is interesting. Justin, we have 30 seconds left, so I'll ask you a quick question. Is there any state that you think Biden absolutely must win or Trump absolutely must win?
I mean, it depends on the math, how it comes down. I mean, if Biden loses Florida, then he's going to have to win Pennsylvania or Arizona. So I really think it's going to be a domino effect. If he wins Florida, Pennsylvania is not as important. Likewise with Arizona. Florida is definitely not trending his way as far as Miami-Dade County. His margins are looking good in other places of the state. But in Miami-Dade right now, the initial results, he's down 9.8% from the 2016 results, and he had to perform there or, the same results or better. But one thing I do want to mention is Pinellas County in Florida, which is something that Trump flipped in 2016. Biden is again winning that by 2.2 points. So we'll see.
Florida keeping us on our toes. Speaking of people who keep us on our toes, we're going to bring Aisha back from DC. Miss Aisha, how are things in DC?
They're good. We're just looking at these returns, listening to y'all talk, and ready to get some more states called. I don't know about you, but I'm anxious. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear them.
I am too, and I know that we are not going to know who the president is until Friday.
Yeah, I know that, but I still want to hear it. I still in my mind, I know one thing, but I'm still kind of call some more states. But also, everyone, we at Vote America believe that every vote should be counted. So I will not push that because
I know that's the thing is I'm I want this to be over.
Right. But
I mean, before we got started tonight, I actually was well, here's an idea. I'm Deborah Cleaver. I'm just going to declare that we're going to stop counting the ballots, and I'm personally going to choose the winner in every race. And then I remembered that I am actually not the RNC, and therefore do not get to push aggressively to stop counting ballots. That's all. That again is a statement of fact. It is a statement of fact.
It is a statement of fact. Yeah, because we're nonpartisan. We only deal with facts. We only deal with facts and numbers, right? So I don't know, that's what we deal with. So that's what we do.
It would have just relieved all of our anxiety if I was team, we're not going to count this year. We're going to pick. Unfortunately, we don't get to do that.
We don't.
We do get to bring on amazing people. And Aisha, if you can introduce the next guest, someone I am very excited for.
I love that we have somebody who is on the ground doing the work that is so amazing with Black men. We have Rashad Frazier Gaines, who works with Amplify Action, who is making it happen. I know you're in Tennessee right now. So give us a little bit of what you've been hearing on the ground today.
Aisha and Deborah, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. Thank you for being great partners. Before I talk about today, I have to talk about the fact that we're only successful because of our partnership with you all. We were able to register close to 40,000 Black men in a very short time period. Amplify Action started on Juneteenth of this year.
What you say? That is awesome. That is just amazing.
And so I'm glad that we got connected. Thank you for being a great partner. Thank you for awesome technology. So I just had to say that. So today, Melissa Watson, who's running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District in South Carolina, tweeted and posted to Facebook that Amplify Action was indeed a ministry. And she posted a picture of a Black man in a Trump hat. And at Amplify Action and Amplify Action Fund, we don't tell Black men how to vote. We just make sure that they have all of the tools that they need to be successful and make educated votes when they go to the polls. And we're not going to win them all, but we're definitely working to make sure that we don't lose any more than we have to lose. The concerns of Black men right now, people want to make sure that they can work and not be harassed and take care of their families. They want to make sure that when they send their kids off to school, once we return, after this pandemic, that their kids will make it to school safe and they'll be safe there, and that they'll be educated with facts and being taught how to figure out problems and problem solve and all of those things. People want to make sure that they're able to save. No one wants to matriculate through life and grow older and, have to work a cumbersome and tiresome job until they die. People want to be able to afford health care for their family. If I'm in a car accident or if I have an illness that pops up, I ought to be able to see a doctor and I not break the bank. I ought to be able to get access to medication and prescriptions and not have to spend my entire life savings on my child's college fund. And people want to send their kids off to good colleges and their children be safe on campus, and they don't have to worry about the safety of their children and that they're getting.
We're talking about colleges. And I definitely want to talk about the fact that you all, you are targeting Black men, which we know that there's a lot of amazing Black men at HBCUs, right?
Absolutely.
So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose Black men and the work that you all were able to partner with us on HBCU campuses this year?
Yeah, so Aisha, I can be very frank with you.
You can.
In the political spectrum that I identify with on the left side of the spectrum, there seems to be a huge I don't want to say disconnect. That's not the word I'm looking for. But it seems that Black men and Black women clash in the progressive and democratic liberal spaces. And 2018, Doug Jones won a special election in Alabama, getting rid of Roy Moore. And the day after the election, somebody at the DNC woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, Black people vote. Oh my gosh, Black women vote 98% with Democrats." And all of these groups and think tanks and all of this money was put behind amplifying the vote of Black women and bringing Black women into that space. And I'm not a hater. So first, Black women deserve that, right? As a Black man, I know the history of Black people in this country. Black women have literally had to sacrifice their bodies to keep their husbands, their fathers, their sons, their nephews safe, right? So I'm not a hater. So, but what the Democrats forgot is that Black men vote at about 91% for the Democrats, which brings the average of Black people to be 95% voting for Democrats. My problem with that is It doesn't matter how great the platform is at the convention. If your congressmen and your senators and your governors and your state senators and your state representatives and your mayors and your county councilmen and your county and your city councilmen and women don't turn that platform into policy, right?
Correct.
So what my business partner and I, Brandon, did, we created Amplify Action to be a space to register Black men to vote, because I know the first thing that people are going to say is, well, Black men don't vote. Well, actually they do. But just because you want to think that, we're going to make sure we're registering Black men every day of the year. Because just because you missed the deadline for this election doesn't mean you can't register and be ready for the next election. Voter registration
Exactly.
Every day. People ask me all the time, what are y'all going to do after the election? We're going to keep registering voters.
Totally. That's exactly what we want you to do, Rashad. And that's exactly what we want to partner with you with. So thank you so much. And keep your ear to the ground. Text me, tell me what's going on in that state, because I definitely want to know. And thank you for coming on, and keep doing all the amazing work that you're doing, Rashad. Thank you so much.
Snoop, Tamara, everybody at Vote America, I appreciate you all. Thank you for being a great technology partner. Thank you for being visionaries. I appreciate the work that you all are doing. And thank you for having me on tonight.
Anytime. Thank you, Rashad. So thank you. That was so great. Hey, Deb.
Hi. He registered so many people.
I know. Wasn't that
many
so
people since June 19th? That is so many people.
In a pandemic, yeah, that's what we do. That's what you created, Deb. Like, you get that? Like, that's what you do.
Also, I just want to repeat something that he said. People were like, well, what are you guys going to do during the off season? What off season? It's like, and I'm always telling people are like, oh, I missed the deadline, I didn't vote in this election. And I'm like, that's okay. So
there's another one coming.
There's always another election coming. And I know if you don't work in this field, it's like, it may seem like this stuff all just like comes together at the very end, but we've been working on this presidential election since December 2016. Voters do not register.
It was really like November. Like, let's be honest, like, we all kind of like had a little moment. I didn't go to yoga, but people went to yoga, they did their thing. And then we started like mid-November. Like,
okay, you got started faster than I did. I just lay on my couch and stared at the ceiling, I think for 4 weeks. It was very meditative. It's as close as I come to meditating. Aisha, we're going to bring Miss Weinberg back on. Annie Weinberg, are you with us?
I'm here. Hello.
Where are you today, actually?
I am in the beautiful city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is why I'm so excited for our next guest. It is my hometown and a pivotal battleground. And I think we have, joining with us now, we've got State Representative Summer Lee. Hi, how are you? Welcome.
I'm good. Can you hear me first? Let's start with that.
Yes, we can definitely hear you. We can hear you. Awesome. Hello. Oh, it's so great to see you.
I know. It's been so long. We're so close yet so far away.
It's so not right. I want to be like standing on top of a table being like, if you can hear my voice, clap once, It's
I know, right?
Like, what kind of campaign night are we doing? It's so good to see you. And just so everybody knows, Summer Lee is the powerhouse who won the 34th State House District of Pennsylvania. She's the sitting representative. She doubled voter turnout in her district when she ran. And you're just an amazing champion for voting rights and expanding the electorate. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground in our hometown in Pittsburgh tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I think Pittsburgh is one of those places that we have to remember. We did a tremendous job. I mean, however you spin it, I would say we did a tremendous job kind of increasing the vote by mail. So today, I mean, it seemed like in Pittsburgh, things were not as active as it was in some other places. Wasn't loud, wasn't too much going on, which is a good thing. It means that so many people had already voted. I just got back from the site where all the votes are. And from what I heard, 60,000 votes have already been counted in Allegheny County. So that means that before we even hit 8 o'clock, 60,000 votes that have been mailed in previously were counted. So that is a positive. We are hoping that, we're hoping that we hit some historic numbers today.
Yeah, amazing. So in the state legislature, I know you have been doing the work to expand voting rights and to protect voting rights in the middle of a pandemic with some colleagues that are not into those same priorities. So I would just love to hear a little bit more about what you've been working on to make sure that Pennsylvanians can actually cast their ballots safely and accessibly, and what you think we need to do next, to actually.
Yeah, to start, there's just so much more that we need to do. And we've made some progress a little bit. I know that for some states, they're accustomed to voting early and voting by mail. Pennsylvania was not until this year a state where we could do any mass mail-in voting. What we used to have was called absentee only, like for cause absentee ballot only, which meant that you had to have like one specified reason, that was already enumerated for why you would need an absentee ballot. With this year, with our new legislation that we passed just this year, we were able to expand that to mail-in ballots for anyone who wants them. And really able, and because of the pandemic, we kind of really had to put that into action really, really fast. So I will say that it's been a little bit of flying the plane while we're building it because of the pandemic. But we saw from the primary that it can work. We saw through the primary just how many more people vote just because it's easier. We had so many more people voting. In fact, in my district, in a primary, we had over 50% turnout during a pandemic after we changed the date, because that's what happens when you make voting easier for folks. So we're happy. We're hoping to get something similar to that now. But the problem is that we didn't have pre-canvassing, which meant that for one of the reasons why we might not get results tonight. Well, we're definitely not getting results tonight. But why we may not get it too soon is because a lot of counties didn't get to start their counting or their pre-canvassing, what we call it, until 7 o'clock this morning. There are some counties, like about 5 of them in Pennsylvania, that won't start even until tomorrow to even start to count their mail-in ballots. So that was something that we went back and forth with the legislature. And we know that while getting mail-in ballots was a great thing, we lost straight ticket voting, which we know sometimes hurts Black voters disproportionately. But we still need to do same-day registration or automatic registration. There are so many things that we need to do to expand the franchise, making sure that folks who are incarcerated can vote. So that's in the future. That's what it looks like if we can win a majority.
Yes, amazing. So I have one last question for you. We have talked about vote shaming and building a more reflective democracy, and why we have to actually invest in folks and who are often the high potential voters, the folks who don't necessarily show up every single election cycle, but also face more systemic barriers. Can you just say a little bit more about why not vote shaming, but engaging in building a more reflective democracy is a priority? Can you just say a little more about that?
This is the thing that I think so many people are shocked by when I say that vote shaming is counterproductive. It does not work. Fun fact, before I was a state rep, I was an organizer. So 4 years ago tonight, I was just coming off of working 100 hours a week on the Hillary Clinton campaign, doing field organizing in my own district. I've talked to hundreds, thousands of people. And oftentimes I'm talking to folks who are disenfranchised, or functionally so at least. I'm talking to folks who their communities have been starved of resources. They've never had anybody come and invest in them. What I always say is before you fix your mouth to tell somebody that it's a shame that they don't vote, consider the fact that perhaps they know something about the system that you're overlooking. Consider the fact that we're both parties. Neither party really invests in critical engagement, right? What would it look like if we were expanding the electorate to do that work? Not just contacting super voters, but contacting infrequent or non-voters. What would it look like if we invested the same amount of money in Black and brown and queer and young potential voters as we do in what we call the swing voters in the Midwest? If we were investing in them that way and treating them that way, what we would see is that we would get a more authentic engagement. and when people know more, and when they're engaged more, and when we see more candidacies from these populations supported, what we will see is a natural, entryway for folks to get involved with it. But just screaming at them and just telling them that it's their fault that they didn't vote and not really helping them find themselves in the system, it hurts us. So that's why I say vote shaming doesn't work. It's counterproductive. It doesn't work. Just talk to a voter, be patient with them.
Love it. We are so grateful for your work. We're so excited to have you here. I think the next person that we're about to bring on is really in line with that vision and everything that Summer just said. So we're about to welcome the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Michigan, Garland Gilchrist. Welcome. And I'm going to let Deborah, welcome, Garland.
Garland, I just want to say that I still can't get over the fact that you are the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan. Okay, just for everyone at home, all three of us know each other. And it's like, so Garland, I have known you for a while, which means I've been following your career, not in a creepy way, I hope. But so first you were the National Campaigns Director of Move On. Then you were the first ever Director of Innovation for the city of Detroit. And now you are the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan. And I mean, I just thought, you worked with Move On. I was like, oh, crazy radical. Obviously, at least that's what people will think. But now you are doing the good work in Michigan, which is a battleground state. And if you could just tell us a bit about what you are seeing right now in your state.
Yes. So first of all, Deborah, it's always good to see you. Annie, it's always good to see you.
So good to see you.
I miss y'all, I think that it's important to recognize that, we all have a role to play in this movement. And sometimes that role might change. And so my role began here as a software developer who decided that community organizing was a better way for me to spend my time. And so I was at Center for Community Change, not Community Change, before I went to Move On even, really learning how to organize in a real way for social, economic, and racial justice. And so that's what really started us down this path. And so, now we're here in Michigan, and I think that our state and the stuff that we've been through this year and the way that we responded to it, I think actually is a testament to the power of organizing, the power of, connecting with people in a real way, recognizing that like responsive leadership is actually what people want, especially in the face of Republicans who have no interest in people and have no interest in community. The sort of the contrast between the kind of leadership that Gretchen Whitmer and I have tried to show in Michigan this year and directly responding to the needs of the people who've been most vulnerable and most deeply impacted by COVID-19, both from a public health and an economic perspective when it comes to racial disparities and all that kind of stuff. But that's not like accidental, right? Like that happened on purpose because of the people we elected. Like there's never been a top of a ticket of Michigan that looked like us, and who you have in office matters. And like Trump's deadly, disgusting, destructive, lying, like all the bad things that Donald Trump is, like that contrast just like shows why it's important to have the right kind of people in office. And so, in Michigan, we've been trying to tell that story and sort of live out that story for 2 years since we took office in January 1 of 19. And so this year, this election year, it's a big year for us on every level. Like obviously, this was the state that Trump won by the slimmest margin of any state, 10,704 votes. That's 2 votes per precinct. In Michigan, think about it, like calling one couple in every community, like literally would win the election. And that's what happened in Michigan. And so, I've been working my ass off to make sure that we can, really maximize turnout. I've been specifically focused on 2 key, I think, elements of the electorate that I think are underappreciated. Well, there's been a lot of talk about mobilizing Black men as voters this cycle. Even though, Black women are the most reliable voting bloc for the Democratic Party, Black men are the second most reliable, but the turnout is a little more variable, right? So I've been really focused on like running a whole Black Men Vote campaign, marching men to the polls, we turned the street into Black Men Vote Alley, like all this kind of stuff to try to engage people, which I think is going to bear fruit, and you're going to see that in Michigan's numbers. But another piece that I think is important for us to think about that I think Michigan is really a bellwether for is this talk about how the suburbs are changing. a lot of that talk focuses on like white women turning toward the Democratic Party. And like, that's objectively true. But I think another piece of that puzzle, which is kind of wrapped up in my own personal life story, is the fact that the suburbs are also diversifying. Like, there are a lot more Black people. There are a lot more Latino people. There are a lot more immigrants. There are a lot more immigrants in Michigan from the Indian American community, for example, that are really growing in numbers in the suburbs. When you hear someone analyzing tonight on TV, Oakland County, Michigan, see if that analyst is going to talk about not just how white women have changed their opinions, but also why the suburbs are different because different people live in the suburbs. And more diverse communities tend to vote for Democrats, and more diverse communities just like want better policy. And so I think you're going to see that as a story that's going to help Michigan, I think, go the right way. And I hope that that trend is holding in other states as well. And I think that's part of what's going to deliver us the presidency, what's going to deliver us the Senate. In Michigan, we're trying to flip the state house because Lord knows Gretchen Whitmer and I need some allies in Lansing in the legislature. And so I think we have a really big opportunity here.
I have one question for you because we have 30 seconds left. This is the first year with Election Day registration in Michigan. Yes?
Yeah.
How are the Election Day registration numbers looking? And for anyone at home who doesn't know what Election Day registration is, it is self-descriptive. You can register and vote on Election Day, and it's pretty much brand new. There were 1 million unregistered voters in Michigan as of yesterday. If you know anything, do you know anything about?
So I don't have a hard number, but I can tell you for the primary that happened in August, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of people took advantage of same day of registration up to and including Election Day. And not just on Election Day, but the fact is, before in Michigan, you had to be registered 30 days before the election actually happened. And so anybody who could register to vote within that window is someone who otherwise would not have been able to participate. So rather than looking at the number of people who registered on E-Day, I think it's important to look at all the people who registered in those final weeks. And so being able to tell someone that, yeah, it's all good. If you're not registered, you can go do that tonight or tomorrow or on Election Day up until 8 p.m. That's really empowering for a person to know that, you know, once they understand that they have that right, they can do it. And so that's been a key part of the message in the organizing here in Michigan. I think it's going to bear fruit. You'll see that in our numbers.
Yeah, Michigan is one of 20 states in the District of Columbia now that have same-day registration, sometimes called Election Day registration, but for all intents and purposes, it means there is no registration deadline, which is exactly how it should be in a modern age where we have computers.
Yeah.
I can actually verify your residency in about a minute.
Magic.
It is magic.
Technology is magic. It does magical things all the time. Yeah.
I was going to ask a question, about early voting. I know that you led an initiative with Congresswoman Tlaib in Detroit and all over, but just about how the process of fighting for early voting and voting rights in the pandemic, how that's been.
Look, I got to be real though. So like a lot of the rights and abilities that we've had to expand access to voting this year were not pandemic responses. Like this actually happened in 2018 in Michigan with the passing of something that was called Proposal 3 in our state, which did things like, one, reintroduce straight ticket voting, which I heard the previous guest from Pennsylvania said they don't have that. That had been taken away by Republicans and put back by voters. Something voters always tend to fix stuff in Michigan. So like we fixed that straight party problem. We fixed this issue of there being an arbitrary 30-day deadline when you can register to vote. We fixed the problem so that you can now vote absentee without an excuse. And what we've been able to do is take advantage of all those tools in a big way during the pandemic. It's almost like we knew there was going to be a really, really major reason why it needed to be a whole lot easier to vote really soon. And so because of that, we were able to then say, you know what, we're going to send every voter in Michigan an absentee ballot application. And like Republicans didn't like that, but like it was the right thing to do because this is the safest way to vote. And then we said, okay, while the USPS is a mess because Trump disinvests in government because they don't like the government, because Republicans don't like the government, so they disinvest in it. Notice that Republicans don't like the government. So what we did is we said, all right, well, we're going to set up drop boxes. We set up 1,000 secure drop boxes across the state of Michigan, and you go drop your ballot off. And like the drop box never closes. It didn't close until 8 p.m. tonight, Election Day. So, this was the first time I ever voted on an absentee ballot because it was simple, safe, and secure. And so doing that and then taking it and dropping it off at a drop box with my family at the end of that march was great. Me and Congresswoman Tlaib made a video about the drop boxes. Like I said, 1,000 across the state. In Detroit specifically, voting's never been more accessible. I'm speaking to you from Detroit right now. We had 23 satellite voting centers that opened on October 5th of this month, where people could go in person, they could register to vote, they could turn in ballots in person. It was staffed by city employees. Like, it was this amazing expanding of access to voting, make it simple, convenient. And I hope that this election, frankly, sets a standard, like sets a floor in Michigan for ballot accessibility that we build upon, so that it's even easier to vote in 2022 and easier to vote in 2024 and easier to vote, hell, in 2020 and next year, 2021, we have municipal elections in cities like Detroit, for example. And so I think we need to really press to expand access, because ultimately we all need to be striving to get to that number of 100%, where 100% of eligible voters turn out. And that'll be in part because we have better tools and better systems, and in part because people know their rights. We also, I've spent a lot of time this year making sure that people know that in Michigan, if you have a criminal record, you can vote. If you are on parole, you can vote. If you are on probation, you can vote. If you are in jail pre-trial, you can vote in Michigan. We are not like other states. Our laws are much more progressive, but a lot of people don't know that. And they think that because you couldn't do something in state A, you can't do it in state B. And so we've tried to tell that story, which is also a pretty key part of making sure that Black men really vote in their full power and potential, because too many of us have been criminalized and therefore may not think we have access to voting power.
Lieutenant Governor, it is a pleasure to talk to you. And I feel like we're going to have to talk again so soon about so many things, because I mean, obviously I agree with you on all of these things. Increased access to the ballot is actually your job as an elected official. And so I'm glad to see that you are living up to expectations. Sir, we must say goodbye to you for tonight. Good luck in Michigan. Obviously, anxiously watching the results come in.
No doubt.
Thank you so much. And now Aisha will be joining us again from DC. Hello, Aisha. Welcome back. I haven't seen you in minutes.
Yes, I know. It's been a few minutes. So yes, I think we're going to be talking to Felipe from Corazon Latino.
And you can just cut me off the screen.
Well, hello, Felipe. How are you?
Hello, Aisha. We lost the. It was not cool to just cut her out. I'm just kidding.
I know. We love Deb, like, because she has all the good stats. I'm just like, I don't have all the stats.
No, I'm very, very honored, very grateful to be here with you and with Vote America, which you guys have been amazing partners in this for this cycle and in this journey.
Oh no, thank you. You know, I love the work that you are doing in Florida and Arizona. And I would love you to talk a little bit about what you're doing and why you chose those states in particular.
Well, we wanted to focus on states, one, that have an important Latino presence. Two, because it also overlaps with a lot of our work. We are an organization that seeks to reconnect Latinos and communities of color with nature. That's the mission. Obviously, we in these times, it's important for us to bring Latinos to the table in decision-making processes, whether it's an election or it's the management program of a national forest or a national park. We need Latinos to represent and to speak up. So we actually had 2 years ago, we started a very successful program in Puerto Rico. We started in DC, but then we went to Puerto Rico to help with the conservation efforts in El Yunque National Forest. And as you know, there's a large diaspora presence in Central Florida. So for us, it was very natural, knowing that we have done a very successful program there. We actually launched the first citizen science project in El Yunque National Forest. So that gave us a really solid foundation to do and connect in a meaningful, a culturally relevant, and obviously a linguistically appropriate way to the diaspora living in the Puerto Rican diaspora living in Central Florida. And then Arizona, because we also have very deep connections for example, I'm from Mexico. So it just made sense for us to do, and we have started already work there along with Arizona State University and other partners. So it just made sense for us to, they're two very, very different, very unique communities, but for us, it made sense to start. to start there. And we actually did I believe a fantastic job. We were able to reach in the 2 weeks leading to the election more than 100,000 local voters in both states, and we actually expanded a little bit to Michigan, Ohio, states where there's also an important Latino and Puerto Rican population. And as I mentioned, we did it in a way that resonates with them. It's not just like, I mean, you and I have been in this for some time, and we know that Latino communities are not monolithic. It's not like one size fits all, just translate into Spanish and there. No, you have to be very tailored. You have to be very understand who your target audience is. So although we were talking about empowering communities in conservation issues, we needed to be very very mindful of the differences of what could be a Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico versus droughts or record heat days in Phoenix. So that's what we're doing, and we're very, very blessed and very grateful to be doing this work.
And the work that you were doing is amazing. And, I just want to thank you on behalf of our organization, because you all, you bring so much to the table, and you were able to translate for us in situations that we probably wouldn't have really thought about. So thank you. And also, before we close, I kind of want to talk about, what do you see this cycle? Were there any things that you saw different that were played out on both sides? We're nonpartisan. We're both nonpartisan organizations. So I know you work with both Republicans and Democrats. So could you tell us a little bit about how you saw that playing out and what you think that means as we move into the next cycle?
Well, one of the best lessons learned that we take out of this, we did a lot of message testing, is really the connection with nature. Is really talking about our motherland, our madre tierra, earth, the well-being of our families, of our communities. It's a nonpartisan issue. I mean, obviously, some people hear climate or get a little bit polarized. But when you're talking about protecting our mother earth, protecting our land, having access to green spaces, and those spaces provide health benefits to our community, it's pretty much nonpartisan. We also go into topics like conserving bees, pollinators, which are super important. So there's a lot of common ground. We just need to be very conscious of how we talk about it, and we can build consensus, and we can bring people together. And especially after this cycle, we need to bring people back to nature. We need healing, and we need a lot of reconciliation.
Thank you so much, Felipe. I mean, that was amazing. And I know that we are so excited to be your partner, and we look forward to ways that we can expand that partnership in the cycles to come. So thank you so much. And, I know you are watching the polls and everything that's coming in as we are. So happy election night. Thank you.
Happy election night to you. And tomorrow, please, everybody, hug a tree. It sounds cliche, but it will definitely help you. So thank you very much.
I'm going to do that. Thank you. So now we have Deborah, Justin, and Annie, my amazing colleagues.
Well, and I think we're bringing everyone back on. Is Fuzzy going to join us? Also,
I think Fuzzy is fixing something in the dashboard, is what I heard. He's like doing data for progress,
Okay,
So first of all, I would like to acknowledge that we are only 9 minutes behind, which is amazing. We're far ahead of many states when it comes to getting things done on election night. In exactly 1 minute, polls are going to close in a dozen more states. We're starting to see 40 million votes have been counted so far, but we are coming to the end of our time on this broadcast, which actually flew by rather quickly. So first, I really want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. And I want to thank my co-host, Aisha, Annie, Justin, and Fuzzy, who is doing what Fuzzy is always doing, which is solving very gnarly problems so that people can cast ballots. I also want to say this dashboard is so cool. If anyone at home does not have it up, 2020.dataforprogress.org, it auto refreshes every 12 seconds. You do not have to refresh the page, which incidentally, I kept refreshing it over and over and over. And Fuzzy was like, why are you doing that? You don't have to refresh it. It refreshes for yourself. This web page is smarter than I am. And let's see, team, before we log off and we join the many, many chats that I know we are all in, let's take a quick minute to look back and look ahead. So how should we do this? I don't know. You know what? I can go first. Looking back, I feel like I am suddenly having feelings because I realize that we are less than 1 year old and we have assembled this team of, I believe, 30 people now who are so deeply committed to this work, who are also deeply committed to doing it in a nonpartisan way, which is not common. We are partisan humans because we are humans. And just knowing that so many of us were willing to commit to the agreement that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that so many of the problems in this country are because like people refuse to lift the tide. And I don't know, it's been very meaningful and special. I'm very surprised I'm having emotions. I don't usually have emotions, but this is only our first year, and I can honestly just imagine what we are going to do next year. I'll give you guys one idea, one thing I think we should be working on. When you get your driver's license, you are automatically registered to vote unless you opt out. When you file your taxes, you should be automatically registered to vote because that is a federal agency. And every single year, the discrepancy between the number of eligible people and the number of people registered is easily filled with the people who file their taxes. In other words, almost 98% of the population files their taxes every year. I want us to start working on that. It's going to be an uphill slog, but that's where I see us going. Now I'm going to round robin this, whoever wants to take it next. So, I mean, we got to get this done by December, guys. So I hope.
Cool.
Okay.
We got it.
And Justin has to raise all of the money. That's what he does. So
probably
yeah.
by the 12th.
Between, I mean, I'm just amazed that, we're a first year organization, and last count we raised almost over $10 million, $10.3 million by our last count. And considering we sent 101 million text messages, 3.5 million people used our tools. We're on 94 HBCU campuses out of 241. I think just everything we've accomplished this year, we have so much to be proud of, and I'm really excited. Hopefully we focus on 2021 and no runoffs in January, but if we do, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I think a lot about, as a third generation HBCU alum, I think about that a lot. And I think about the fact that Deb and Justin did not flinch when they were like, well, we should go on all of these campuses. And, when nobody wanted to pay for it, we will figure out how it will get paid because it is so important. And, $900,000 later, we did it. And so that is amazing. And to have the sites and the thoughts to even do that when nobody else wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to go to campuses and touch students where they were. That is so important to me. And so, I think about that a lot because, sometimes the things that people need to do isn't easy. And so I know it wasn't easy the last few weeks. So that is huge, huge, huge for Vote America. Yeah.
The one thing that stuck with me too, I remember when we talk about the campus, is that if we're able to get a college student or someone young to vote 3 elections in a row, they become a voter for life. And when looking at some of the HBCUs, I mean, some of the schools had 400 students on there, so you're not going to see a lot of traditional organizations spending their time and their money and their energy in these really small schools. Also considering some of the locations too, and they're in very conservative red states.
Correct. And then also the fact that we sent, when there were students on campuses, we decided, well, we want to make sure that they can actually vote safely, so we sent things to their campus so that they could vote safely, so that they didn't have any issues, masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, that too is a big deal. And so thank you.
And if you do want to support our work, it's still ongoing. Go to voteamerica.com and hit the donate button. I'm going to make my pitch here. There's still much to be done, and we still have many bills to pay off. So support us.
I'm glad Justin made the ask. I was just going to say we're wildly ambitious, and we, get as far as we can on enthusiasm and talent. And there is no shortage of money spent on elections, but the money is misspent. And if we took the money that we put into broadcast TV ads that no one watches and no one is persuaded by, that we put it into our actual election infrastructure and outreach and engagement, we would have 85% turnout. This election cost $15 billion. Billion.
You could buy a nice island for that as well.
We could fix democracy and buy an island.
I think a Hawaiian island is
And
actually
all go there.
Yeah.
We could all go there on private planes if we did that. Yes.
Ms. Weinberg, would you like to give us the final thoughts before we say goodnight to our guests?
Yeah. So I think what I want to say is that all of this commitment has really been around what it would be like to build a more fully reflective democracy. Like, what if our political process and our elected officials and our legislative bodies looked like and reflected from the voters to the candidates to the campaigners our lived needs, experiences, and our values. Just hearing representatively in my hometown made me feel that way, right? But thinking about what it takes for lots of people to be able to have that opportunity and making it easy and safe and inclusive for everybody is really the mission. And so it's why I'm super honored to be with everybody tonight. And it's why every vote has to be counted. We know it's going to be a long night. Folks have been calling it a red mirage, if you will, that a lot of the election day results we knew might look in some of these places like more Republican, in part because some of the ballots for the Democratic votes were cast early or by mail. And so what's happening now is what we thought would happen in a lot of these counties, and we're going to keep watching it. And we got to make sure every vote is counted.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us all tonight. It's not just going to be a long night, it's going to be a long week, because we're going to count the votes and we're going to let the voters decide who our elected leaders are. Thank you all so much. Have a good election night and stay safe. Things might be wild out there. Good night, everybody.